Welcome to the DGMT's Learning Lunch podcast. I'm your host, Tutulam Genela. The Learning Lunch is an opportunity for NPO teams to be exposed to new ideas, to discover what others are learning, and also to reflect on what that means for their own implementation and strategy. Now, as civil society, we see ourselves as drivers of change, the people that are in the forefront, that are doing the work to ensure that change happens, and we are redressing the imbalances of the past that excluded many of us, while also creating a new future possibility for South Africa, to transform South Africa, to ensure that we move to a South Africa that is a flourishing society. But sometimes we can get so into the day-to-day runnings of the work that we do that we lose our energy and our drive to explore new paths and to, find new ideas and get new ideas into our organizations. And that can sometimes, put a strain on our NPOs as we go forward, in terms of maybe losing sight of the vision and not really understanding where are we going with this. So it's important for us to take that time to really reflect and to put in the new ideas and to see what are the things that we've been doing in the past that have been working, what are the things that we can improve upon. And so Theory U is an interesting approach that many people believe is able to establish conditions that groups of people need to help them to create real and lasting change together. It was developed by the social innovator Oudtshoorn, who is based at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, known as MIT. Today, we are deep diving into Theory U, getting an understanding of what it is. It may be a foreign term for many, but I think by the end of this podcast, we will all have a clue and an idea and an understanding of what Theory U is all about. We are going to be speaking to someone very special. He goes by the name of Hans van der Veen. He's a clinical psychologist who founded the Klein Karoo U.lab hub, which is based on the principle of Theory U. The Klein Karoo U.lab hub has taken on interesting community projects over the years, including a Theory U process with one of the high schools in the Oudtshoorn area. It was interesting to see how the participants, the teachers, the parents, and the learners could create new approaches and bring about positive change into the school through using Theory U. With Hans, we have Lisl Barry, who is a parent at Oudtshoorn High School, who participated. So we have first-hand experience, someone that has gone through Theory U process and has come out of it, and she's going to be sharing her takeaways and the things that she explored and saw worked and all the great takeaways from the Theory U process. Thank you so much to my two guests for joining us and making time for this podcast. We really do appreciate it, and it is an honor. Hans as well as Lisl, welcome.
Thank you very much, Tula. It was a lovely introduction and looking forward to sharing this space with you.
Hans, I'm going to start with you. If you could please briefly introduce us to Theory U. It is said that Theory U is a tool for social innovation to create change. But at its core, what would you say Theory U is?
I think we can start with a quote by Oudtshoorn, who was a mentor of Oudtshoorn, the person that developed Theory U. And he talks about, we do not think and talk about what we see what we are able to think and talk about. We think that what we see is reality, but there's lots of things we don't see. I think in terms of making it practical in South Africa's history, the days of apartheid, there was just complete blind spots in our society. So Theory U focuses on raising awareness in terms of what's going on around me in my society, but also raising awareness in terms of my own self. What is it that I notice? And it's awareness-based systems change. And that MIT that you spoke about, they've developed a 14-week online program, which is called U.lab, and it runs every year from September till December. So that's how Lisl and myself and many of the other participants, that's how we got to know each other better, all of us meeting every week.
And just looking at how Theory U can be implemented in NPOs and communities, how can it be useful through your eyes and your experience?
The two, it's on two levels. The one is Theory U. It's the framework, the theoretical framework. We'll speak about that a bit later. I've been involved now for about 5 years in Theory U, U.lab. And I think taking the bird's eye view is the incredible relationships that form while we participate in this program. And we can call it like enabling relationships. Lisl and myself, we're part of a team that's trying to scale food relief and food security through community gardening. And the team that's working on that, it's people that went through U.lab. I think the future lies in networks of relationships where people trust each other. I think when I grew up, there was this thing of like this man that's going to save the country or will bring change. But I think Theory U works in that space of we weave relationships. That's at the core, I think.
Definitely. It brings it back to you and your community and, what are the things that you can bring to your community. There's something that I like a lot from the book by Oudtshoorn that talks about how we are taken from a place of the ego system to the ecosystem of awareness. And for me, that stands out because when we are at an ecosystem of awareness, there's so much more that we can do as communities, as individuals. Now, Hans, looking at some of the exercises, could you perhaps give us examples of the exercises that you would let people go through in the various stages?
A big part of Theory U.lab is improving your listening skills. And Oudtshoorn has got these 4 levels of listening that he talks about. And so initially, you're exposed to the levels of listening, and then you practice it by going on like empathy walks, a dialogue walk, where you, for instance, will choose someone that is completely different from you in the sense of maybe their socioeconomic status or their profession or age, and you'll go on the empathy walk journey where you practice your listening and come back. A big part of with Theory U.lab is journaling, to try and reflect back and see what came into my awareness when I listened. So many of the exercises, this whole thing of listening and then reflecting back on what moved into awareness is core to that. Then, for instance, we're also doing it currently at my workplace, a U.lab program. We currently busy with co-sensing interviews. I work at a sick bay. So we, for instance, would be talking to patients about how they experience our service. We would be talking to healthcare professionals about how they see their role. We would be talking in terms of the support staff, the people that run logistics. We would also talk maybe about retired members that used to work here. And through all these exercises, at the end, what we do is in Theory, there's a lot of using non-verbal ways of making sense of what we experienced. And we will do, for instance, like a collage of what we became aware of. So trying to find images and gestures and feelings to reflect back on the sense-making process. So that's another example. There's numerous exercises. It's lovely in the way when something else is embodiment, like sculpting your body to express what you're feeling. I come from background of photography, and I love, like words is often can't take you far enough, and art and other forms of expression can take you there. And Theory U has got that, addresses that very much.
It's interesting that you mentioned the 4 levels of listening based on the Theory U process. Could you perhaps maybe take us through those 4 stages of listening?
Yes, yes, it's a core part of getting going. So the first one is downloading. That's basically when you're only listening for that, what you already know. You're sort of in the center of your own universe. Nothing changes. Then the second level of listening is factual listening, and that's data listening. If we make it practical in terms of with the vaccines, one will probably say, okay, which vaccine is the best with COVID now over the last year and a half? So good science happens on the second level. So you're looking for difference, but you're weighing it up. Does it make sense or not? So the third level of listening is empathic listening, where you actually move outside your own sort of ego-centered way of listening and look at the situation from the other person's view. So you sort of, like you're standing back and you stand in the shoes of the other person. And then the fourth level of listening is what we call generative listening, and that's maybe something new to the listeners. And to make it practical, when a coach is coaching an athlete or a teacher teaches a student, a learner, you don't see the person just for where they are now in their life, but you also see them in terms of who they could become if they realize their potential. In terms of South Africa's history, Martin Kalunga Banda in the One Levels of Listening video, he talks about when Chris Hani was assassinated in 1993, before the elections. Nelson Mandela went onto TV that night and he spoke about Chris Hani was shot by a white man, but it was also a white lady that reported what she saw, that she reported to the police. She wrote down the telephone number, and that was why Jonas Follows could be arrested. But the way that the late President Mandela spoke to the nation on TV was he spoke about a future of South Africa where people work together and it's not blame. So you can hear how he spoke from bringing the future, that type of country that we all dream about, bringing it into the present.
I'm so, mesmerized myself. I'm taking it all in and just learning so much from Theory U. And especially, I think this is the 4 stages of listening, I think, are very important and set the tone for the rest of the Theory U process. Lisl, I'm going to come to you now, just talking more about Theory U process, and of course knowing that you got involved yourself in Theory U at the Oudtshoorn High School. Can you explain to us why you decided to go ahead with it, and what did you want to achieve in the first place, and also what was the process like for you?
Hi, Tule. So I had 2 children at Oudtshoorn High at the time. This was 3 years ago. And the one was in grade 8 and the other one was in grade 10. And the school was going through quite a difficult time. My oldest daughter, her class had become increasingly disruptive, and it was just a really negative environment in which these kids had to try and learn. And it seemed like there was so much potential in the school and that it wasn't being tapped into. There's a lot of diversity in the school, and it just seemed like there was potential to bring about positive change there. And so the other thing was that we kind of wanted to show our kids that if things don't always go the way, that it doesn't go smoothly, that you can be part of the solution rather than just complaining or just giving up on it. The process of learning the skills at U.lab, the listening skills, was incredible. And then we did a co-sensing journey with the school. So that involved interviews with a cross-section of stakeholders. So it was teachers, including the principal, various cross-section of learners from matric leaders to so-called disruptive, naughty kids, just amazing cross-section of kids. Parents, including a school governing body, and then members of the community that have lots of connection with the school, like the extra maths teachers and things like that. So we broke up into small groups because there was a big group of U.labers. We broke up into small groups and then, did individual interviews. And the method of listening in this way, it just allows people to really go deeply and open up to their experience, what they're experiencing at the school. And it wasn't always negative. So it was quite an uplifting experience as well, that there was a lot of potential, a lot of hope, creativity. But parallel with that was a sense of teachers feeling overwhelmed and learners feeling like they weren't being listened to. Once you've done the interview and the stakeholder had left, everybody in the group sort of gives their immediate intuitive impression. So it can be a visual thing like a boat floating on the crest of a wave or lighthouse. So it accesses what everything was said in a much quicker, immediate way. And then just keywords that came up. And then, as Hans said, after the whole process, we got together and put a collage together on both sides of the scale, the positive and what needed to be worked on. So, it was just quite an amazing process in that, even though, my personal experience was quite a negative one, through listening and going through this process, that there was a lot of hope and potential that just needed to be tapped into.
You also sort of just see that we get stuck in our conventional ways of doing things, and when something like this comes along, you see, oh, wow, so there was another way of thinking, so there is another way of listening. And I think you've really summed it up nicely. But also, Lisl, I want you to perhaps maybe just expand a little bit more on the biggest impact that you felt, or that the Theory U process had on you. Maybe a personal thing that you'd like to share?
There's actually two sides to this. The one was witnessing people opening up, when they realized that they were being listened to in a totally non-judgmental way. There was we did, I don't know if you remember this, Hans, but we did a sort of like a guinea pig moment with the whole group, with one of the mothers from the school who'd had a difficult time. And she was sitting before this whole group of people. And I mean, I would have been very overwhelmed. And she had this big handbag on her lap. And, it was like she almost created this barrier between her and everybody. And then after a few questions, she realized that people were actually really interested in hearing her story. And she went, okay, you want to hear? And she took her handbag and put it aside, and her whole body language changed, and she just opened up and shared her experiences. And it was quite beautiful. And then for the on the other side was that I've always actually been more a listener than sharing, opening up myself. So doing things like the empathy walk was quite an overwhelming challenge for me. But to actually be in a space where someone is totally listening to you wholeheartedly, it was also quite a life-changing experience. And it sort of put me in a space of understanding what it is like for others when you are truly listened to.
I share your sentiments there. I'm also that person. I've always, all my life, I've been the one that's been listening and never really listened to. And it must have been really, really sort of mind-blowing for you, to get that experience, to be listened to in that particular methodology and without judgment as well.
Absolutely. I think we all, we kind of put these walls up because we are afraid to be judged or misunderstood. And as soon as you can shed those walls, you do, as Hans said earlier, you sort of build up amazing, deeper relationships with people. it was fantastic. The other thing is to see now, because my younger daughter's now in matric, how her class group has grown, in their connection to each other and the potential that they have to make changes within the school.
That's the possibility in the future. That's how Theory U works. Hans, I don't know if you'd like to step in a bit here. If you could please take us through the empathy walk. How does that work? I almost feel like I would go on a walk with someone or...
Yeah, it's literally a walk. And
Okay.
the empathy walk, there's a short version, there's a long version. It could be an hour, it could be half an hour. When we talk, the way that we listen is there's almost like an obligation that I must say something back to prove that I'm listening.
Yes.
But during the empathy walk, you keep quiet, but you pay attention. You really pay attention. And like when thoughts come up, the need to say something comes up, you acknowledge it, but you go back to the person speaking. And afterwards, when it's done, when both parties get a chance for, let's say, half an hour to do this, then you will do a reflection to say, okay, when did I feel the need to say something? It's often, let's say, if I had a similar experience, maybe a traumatic experience that this person is sharing, then you want to say, yes, it also happened to me. I know what you're talking about. So, like, to become aware of how hard it is for us to listen with an open heart, and what amazes me about this exercise is we've just recently done it here at my workplace. It's like in a space of 30 minutes, people can share things that they've never before shared with people that they work with every day. It's just because you create the space for proper being present. And that's where, the Theory U thing of being present in the moment, present in each other's life. The empathy walk is a very powerful exercise, and it can be done online, obviously, as well.
Sure. Being present and really getting rid of the ways you've done things, that's what I'm hearing. And surely that must be challenging. But it's something that is possible. And I think there's so much more that NPOs can learn about Theory U and the possibility that it brings into communities. And so, Hans, as well as Lisl, how do you sort of picture it working within NPOs, those people that work with communities, work with individuals to improve their lives, to make positive change in the communities of South Africa? How can Theory U work for those NPOs?
I think it triggers awareness of what other people are experiencing when you have dialogue, or when you truly listen to somebody and you realize their difficulties and their experiences, although it might be in a different form and shape, are not that much different to yours. You share the same hopes, and we all come with our own perspectives and our own history, but yet we all want our families to thrive and our communities. And so when you break down those sort of barriers through speaking about it and listening to other people, I think you just have a place from which to grow from. Especially given our history, where we lived in such segregated environments.
I think I want to add on to what Lisl says. That's one. I mean, Oudtshoorn, where we live, it's almost like pre-1994 in many ways. We don't know each other's stories, and the government can make laws until they blue in their face, but if the people on the ground don't connect to each other, we will not flourish. We will not thrive as a community. So a big part of the Theory U process is creating spaces for stories. And I think for the NGOs, it's got beautiful exercises of tapping into stories and together with that is, I think, is this whole framework. Like the first stage of the theory U is that listening, that sensing of what's going on, and then the second at the bottom is that retreat and reflect, see what it does to me, what is mine to do, and then the third phase is like prototyping, acting, act fast, fail fast, learn fast. Don't wait for the perfect solution. Just start doing it. And you know what? Another thing to like, what I love about Theory U and U.lab, for instance, if you register for U.lab, you can do it for free. I mean, like it's a full-on professional course. It's an online program for 14 weeks. You can do it for free, and part of U.lab is also Ubuntu Lab, which is focused on Africa. So that's also another part of the Presenting Institute that I think the NGOs can really look into. And permaculture, community gardening is very much part of the focus of Ubuntu Lab as well, but also leadership development.
It's about connecting. That's what I'm hearing. It's about connecting without judgment, hearing one another's stories and moving forward from there. How do we create a better society together? Understanding and acknowledging the things that we go through or have gone through, and having that open dialogue that Lisl speaks about there. And just acknowledging someone else's walk and someone else's cry or trauma even. I'm going to say thank you. It has come to that point where we have gained so much during this time with you, Hans, as well as Lisl. I think that many people will be assisted, and many people will want to implement the U theory into their NPOs and into their own personal lives. That's I'm already thinking, okay, sign up, it's for free, I'm there. So thank you so much for sharing with us and how it can be implemented into, and I think it's also very practical as well to implement into your everyday life, your organization, your NGO, or I think even in your family. You can do it as a family exercise as well. And for everyone else that's also listening out there, thank you so much for your time, and we hope that you feel inspired about what you've heard today. Would like you to please do not miss out on the complimentary bites that we have on this section of our website, and you will get all of that from the resources section, and you'll find out a little bit more about Theory U also, and you'll find various links that will lead you to the online course tools. And also we have Hans that's going to be telling us a little bit more about Theory U and giving us our takeaways for this podcast.
So I'm going to move over to a practical exercise now for the NPOs. We spoke about the empathy walk, and so I thought let's do a empathy walk. The whole exercise will take you half an hour. The first step would be for you to watch the levels of listening video. There's under the resources you'll see Oudtshoorn. There's 2 videos of levels of listening that he explains, and then I really like the one. There's a third one by Martin Kalungabanda from Zambia. It's also part of the team. I like Martin because he talks in a practical manner. So if you've got the time, go watch that as well. Okay, so you've now watched the levels of listening. You understand the 4 levels of listening. And now what you're going to do during this empathy walk is you're going to divide up into groups of 2. And here I want to ask you to please choose someone that you don't know in your group. The person that you know the least, team up with that person. And online, you guys will arrange for that. But in terms of physical, those of you that's physically present, the team up with someone that you don't really know. Each of you will get a chance to talk. Decide who will talk first. So you get 14 minutes to talk. Then there's 1 minute of saying nothing, just being quiet. And then the other person gets his or her 14 minutes. And then you're going to do a little bit of reflection. Okay, so that's now the practical things out of the way. Now, what will you talk about? The first, we'll share this under the resources as well, but just introduce yourself, a little bit about your growing up years, where are you from, how did you end up here in your current position. Please share with your partner, what does a good day at work look like for you? Okay, so we start with that. Then second part is think back to the last couple of weeks at work. Think of one story from your experience where things were made either easier or either more challenging at your workplace. So it's these two opposite, something that was made easier. What did somebody do that made your work easier? What did somebody do that made your work harder? And then the last part of the conversation is to try and think of how will you explain what is it like to work at your NPO to somebody that doesn't know your environment at all. What words will you use? Talk about how will you explain that? And then please use an incident that happened at your workplace, at your NPO, that illustrates, that sets a good example of what is it like to work there. Okay, so now the other person was just listening all the time. Now you swap places and you repeat. Okay, once you've both of you had a chance and you've had a moment of silence, just a few markers. So the listener focus completely on the words of the partner without making any interruption. Secondly, observe your own listening. Am I paying attention? When do I notice thoughts are coming in? When do I feel the need to make a comment? So the role of this exercise is to try and notice these thoughts coming in without judgment, immediately letting go of it and redirect your full attention to your partner speaking. The only time that you can say something as the listener is if it can help the speaker to go deeper into what he or she is saying. So the role of the speaker is to become completely immersed in his or her own thoughts and to actually verbalize one's thinking in the process so as to reach a deeper understanding. Okay, so then afterwards you just do like a 5-minute reflection on how you experience it. What did you notice? What surprised you? Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Hans, for providing us with this exercise. I'm sure that it will be very useful for our NPO teams. And to the listener, thank you as well for listening in. And do remember that you can also find these instructions on our resources section of this podcast.